All right, so in this lesson, we're gonna look at business English, and we're gonna look at kind of English language as it relates to business in terms of politeness. So these days, many people take courses in business English, which usually cover things like giving a presentation or attending a job interview. So many students practice a lot of public speaking, right? So you can see this kind of idea that when you're in business, you're giving a presentation or a lecture to a group of people, or these kinds of things that are covered in a business English course. And so people practice these things like public speaking because they think business, you're doing a lot of public speaking. But actually, most jobs do not involve a lot of speaking in front of large groups of people. Okay. Sometimes in business you will do this type of thing, but it's not that many jobs. And usually those sorts of jobs are done by older professionals, right, who can share their experience to a younger, less experienced audience. Right. So it's people who have some knowledge and they are sharing this knowledge, right? When you're usually starting out, you're not going to be doing that much public speaking. And actually, most of the English used in the office kind of environment and the workplace are common everyday interactions, okay? So things like small talk, requesting, making suggestions, refusing, apologizing, those kinds of things. This is kind of everyday business English, okay? And it's everyday, but it's still different from English outside of the workplace, right? And it's still very important to get these daily interactions at work right. Right, this is very important for to maintain positive relationships with your colleagues, subordinates, and superiors. So even though these things are daily, if you get them wrong, and if you get them wrong every day, then the relationships are not going to be good. And from my experience, these are the sorts of things that most learners of English who work in a kind of an English-speaking work environment, that's where they have the most problems. Things like small talk and these daily interactions. Now, the main feature of English used in the place of work is the importance of effective use of politeness, formality, or indirectness. So these things mean the same thing. Like being polite means being more formal, and being less direct. Okay. And it's very important to use this effectively. That's what we're going to look at. The purpose of the correct use of politeness or indirectness is to maintain cooperative relationships while still getting things done. Okay, so you want to be getting things done at work. You've got to get people to do things. Or people want you to do something for them, right? There's a lot of this kind of interaction, and you need to kind of cooperate, and you want to maintain the relationship in a positive way, right? So common interactions that depend on skillful use of formality or politeness include small talk, requesting. So small talk is like just saying hello and saying something friendly. So we're going to look at that today. Requesting or giving instructions or getting someone to do something for you. Refusing means saying no. Making suggestions. Disagreeing. Making complaints. And making apologies. These are very common types of interactions at work. For each of these types of interactions, there are two things that we need to learn. First, how to decide whether we should be more or less polite. Okay, so we need to know, can I just be direct or do I need to be polite? And second, how politeness is expressed in language. So if I decide, okay, I need to be polite, how do I do that? What kinds of English expressions do I need to use? So let's have a look at that. So let's consider how directness might be expressed in language. So here are some ways of requesting. So this is requesting a cup of tea. So you can say, a cup of tea. A cup of tea, like you can just say that to someone, like a waiter, right? You can say, a cup of tea, thanks. So it's more polite, right? You can say, I'd like a cup of tea, thank you. So it's more polite again. Could I have a cup of tea? More polite again. And then you could say, I was wondering if I could have a cup of tea. So it's even more polite. I couldn't have a cup of tea, could I? So it's very indirect now, right? Or, I'd really appreciate if I could have a cup of tea. So that's very, very polite. Well, it's usually too polite for this type of situation. But in some situations, it's appropriate to use this very long, complicated expression when it's something that you're asking that is difficult. So we're going to look at that, how to decide, what sort of expression is appropriate. So you will notice that the more direct requests are shorter, whereas the more polite requests are longer, right? So the shorter the expression, like a cup of tea, that's very direct, right? So it means not polite. Whereas the very long expression is much more polite. Also, the more formal or indirect requests include softening words like could, would, and wondering. So these words are softening. They make the request less direct and kind of softer. These words suggest that the other person has a choice as to whether they agree to the request. Okay, so it means that you're not kind of telling them to do it. They could say no, right? So the more you soften a request, the more the other person feels free to say no, to refuse, and that just makes it more polite. There are also other ways of being indirect, such as pausing, small talk, giving reasons, etc. So the length of the expression and the softening words is just one important way of softening, but also using small talk and giving reasons and those kinds of things also communicate politeness and also kind of soften the request or whatever it is. So the next question is, how can we determine the appropriate level of formality? So here you need to consider three aspects of the situation. So first, is there a status difference with the other person? So it means, is the person like your equal, your peer, like the other students, or is the person kind of higher status, like your teacher, or lower status, right? Are you the same status or different? Two, do you know each other well? The more familiar you are, the more direct you can be. Three, how difficult is it to make a request? Refuse, disagree, apologize. The more difficult it is, the less direct you should be, right? So, are you asking for something small, like to borrow a pen, or are you asking for something big, like to borrow 1,000 renminbi, or to, something like that? To borrow someone's computer. Is the request big or small, etc.? So basically, you have status difference, familiarity, difficulty, and you go, low, so no status difference. Medium, high. Familiarity, low means not familiar, don't know the person, or high means I know the other person well. Difficulty means something easy or something difficult or something in the middle, right? So those are the things you need to think about. Okay, so whenever you need to communicate in a workplace environment, you should take into account the three factors. How big is the status difference with the other person? How well do you know each other? And is the thing you're dealing with difficult or risks causing offense? Okay, and that kind of tells you, do you need to be more polite or less? And then you need to choose the language and the way you interact to fit that. So we're gonna look at three business emails to kind of look at the language and to see from the language whether it's polite or formal, right? Like whether it's very polite, whether it's kind of neutral, or whether it's informal and direct, right? So we have email 1, email 2, okay? And then there's another email on the next page. So I want you guys to read the email, right? You can stop the video, read the email, this one, and the one on the next page. Okay, and this one. So read the three emails and then decide, is the email formal, neutral, or informal? And you can answer those questions on the quiz, and then you can write in the chat, why do you think that, right? Why do you think that a particular email is formal, neutral, or informal? So formal means, yeah, very polite. Neutral is in between, and informal is very direct. Okay, so read the three emails and then decide, is the email formal, neutral, or informal, and maybe say in the chat, why do you think that is the case?